The wind rolled across the dusty plains outside a small frontier town near the edge of the Arizona Territory, lifting sand into thin spirals that danced between wooden buildings. Horses tied to the hitching post stomped and snorted, uneasy in the dry afternoon heat. Men in worn leather hats leaned against the saloon porch, their boots hooked on the railing, watching the horizon the way they always did, expecting trouble, or boredom, whichever came first. Then they saw her. She rode in slowly from the western trail, her posture straight, her expression calm as still water. The sunlight caught the turquoise beads around her neck, making them glint against her buckskin dress. A long dark braid rested over her shoulder, tied at the end with red thread. In her hands, held carefully against her chest, was a small silver box wrapped in deep crimson cloth. The town fell silent. No one spoke her name, but everyone knew she was Apache. And Apaches did not ride alone into towns like this without purpose. At the far end of the street stood Daniel Hayes, a quiet cowboy with dust on his boots and solitude in his eyes. He had drifted into town months ago, fixing fences, breaking horses, keeping mostly to himself. Some said he'd once been a soldier. Others said he was running from something. Daniel never corrected either story. The woman stopped her horse directly in front of him. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then she dismounted with quiet grace. Her moccasins touched the dirt without a sound. She stepped closer, ignoring the stares burning into her back, until she stood only inches from Daniel. Up close, he could see strength in her eyes, not anger, not fear, but certainty. She extended the silver box toward him. "Accept this precious box," she said, her voice steady and clear against the wind, "and be my husband, Cowboy." A sharp breath passed through the gathered men on the porch. Someone muttered in disbelief. Daniel did not laugh. He did not step away. His gaze lowered briefly to the box, then lifted back to her face. "What's inside?" he asked quietly. She held his eyes without hesitation. "My promise. My tribe's blessing. And my heart." The wind softened, as if even the desert waited for his answer. Daniel did not open the silver box in the middle of the street. Instead, after a long, heavy silence, he closed his rough fingers gently around it and nodded toward the open land beyond the town. Without a word, he began walking. The Apache woman followed, leading her horse beside him. Curious eyes tracked them until the buildings faded behind and the desert swallowed the sound of boots against dirt. They stopped near a line of sun-baked cliffs where the wind carried only the distant cry of a hawk. There, away from judgment and whispers, she finally spoke. "My name is Apache," she said. "Daughter of Gray Falcon." Daniel recognized the name. Gray Falcon was known among settlers and tribes alike, a leader who preferred peace but did not fear war. "You saved my brother," she continued. 3 moons ago. Near the dry river crossing. Memory flickered across Daniel's face. A boy no older than 15, cornered by outlaws looking for leverage against the tribe. Daniel had intervened without asking questions, driving the rustlers off with steady aim and a colder stare. He had not stayed for thanks. "I didn't know who he was," Daniel replied. "You saved blood," Apache said softly. "In our way, that binds spirits." She knelt in the dust and carefully unwrapped the crimson cloth. The silver box gleamed in the sun, its surface etched with delicate patterns. When she opened it, the inside revealed a turquoise ring, a braided leather cord, and a small folded cloth marked with tribal symbols painted in deep blue. "The ring is unity," she explained. "The cord is strength. The cloth carries blessing from my father and the elders. I offer you place among us." Daniel's jaw tightened. He had lived years without belonging anywhere. Drifting ranch to ranch. Sleeping under open sky. Keeping his heart guarded like a loaded rifle. "You don't know me," he said quietly. "I've got no land. No home worth bringing you to." Apache met his doubt with calm certainty. "A home is not walls. It is who stands beside you. Before he could answer, the sharp crack of a rifle shattered the stillness. A bullet struck the cliff face above them, sending shards of stone raining down. Daniel's instincts took over. He pushed a pony low behind a rock and scanned the ridge. Riders appeared against the skyline, Brody Kane and his men. The land hunters had found them. And Daniel realized something with sudden clarity: whether he accepted the box or not, he was already standing on her side. The first shot echoed across the cliffs like a warning from the mountains themselves. Dust burst from the rock above Daniel's head, and the sharp scent of gunpowder drifted on the wind. He didn't hesitate. Instinct moved him faster than thought. He pulled a pony lower behind the ridge and unslung his rifle in one smooth motion, eyes narrowing against the glare of the sinking sun. Riders lined the horizon, silhouettes against a burning orange sky. Brody Kane sat at the center, broad-shouldered and smug even at a distance. His men fanned out slowly, confident, circling like wolves that believed their prey had nowhere left to run. "They want your land," Daniel muttered. "They want fear," a pony replied, her voice steady despite the chaos rising around them. Another shot rang out. Daniel fired back, his aim precise. One rider's hat flew from his head, and the formation wavered. The element of surprise was gone now. Hooves thundered down the slope as Kane's men charged. Daniel grabbed a pony's hand. "We ride to your people. Now." They mounted swiftly, racing across the desert as bullets tore into the sand behind them. The Apache settlement came into view just as the sky deepened into twilight. Warriors emerged, alerted by the gunfire. Within moments, the quiet valley transformed into a battlefield. Kane's gang stormed in hard, expecting panic. Instead, they met resistance. Daniel rode straight into the fray, positioning himself between the attackers and the settlement center. He moved with controlled fury, firing only when certain, never wasting a shot. Beside him, Apache warriors defended their ground with fierce precision. Through smoke and shouting, Daniel spotted Kane aiming his rifle toward a pony, who was helping guide children toward safety. Time slowed. Daniel spurred his horse forward and turned just as the rifle cracked. Pain tore through his shoulder as the bullet grazed him, but he stayed upright. Ignoring the burn of blood soaking into his shirt, he steadied his aim and shot the rifle from Kane's hands. The outlaw cursed, thrown from his horse as warriors surrounded him. Seeing their leader disarmed, the remaining riders broke ranks and fled into the darkening desert. Silence crept back slowly, broken only by heavy breathing and the distant retreat of hooves. Daniel swayed slightly but didn't fall. A pony reached him, her hand steady as she pressed cloth to his wound. Around them, the tribe gathered, not with suspicion, but respect. He hadn't spoken vows. But he had chosen his side. Dawn came softly over the desert, washing the valley in pale gold. Smoke from the night's fires drifted upward in thin, fading ribbons, and the settlement stood quiet once more. The battle had ended, but its memory lingered in the stillness. Daniel sat on a low wooden crate outside one of the lodges, his injured shoulder wrapped tightly in clean white cloth. The pain was sharp, but manageable. He had known worse. Across the open space, members of the tribe moved with quiet purpose, repairing what little damage had been done. Children peeked at him curiously from behind their mothers' skirts. Warriors nodded as they passed. The looks he received were no longer cautious, they were measured, respectful. A pony approached as the sun crested fully above the horizon. She carried the silver box in both hands. The crimson cloth had been cleaned and rewrapped carefully, as if the night's violence had not dared to touch it. She stopped in front of him, her expression softer now, but no less certain. "You stood with us," she said. Daniel looked out toward the open desert for a long moment before answering. Didn't feel right standing anywhere else. She knelt before him and opened the box once more. The turquoise ring caught the morning light, glowing like a piece of the sky itself. The braided leather cord rested beside it, strong and unbroken. My father says courage reveals truth, she continued quietly. Last night revealed yours. Daniel studied the items inside. For years he had ridden alone, never staying long enough to let roots form beneath his boots. He had told himself that drifting was freedom. That belonging only led to loss. But when the bullets flew, he hadn't thought of escape. He had thought of her. Without ceremony, without speech meant for an audience, Daniel reached into the box and lifted the braided cord first. He tied it firmly around his wrist. Then he picked up the turquoise ring and closed his fingers around it. A pony's breath caught slightly, though she did not look away. He stood slowly despite the ache in his shoulder and walked toward his horse. With his good arm, he adjusted the saddle, then turned back to her. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Daniel extended his hand. A pony placed her hand in his. He helped her into the saddle and mounted behind her, steady and sure. No grand declaration left his lips. No dramatic vow carried on the wind. He simply turned the horse toward the wide, waiting horizon. As they began to ride, a pony leaned back slightly and whispered, "You never answered my question." Daniel's voice was low, certain. "I just did."